point, there's a better chance that a new wireless technology will show up before optical does at Loma Del Mar.
I need those wires to have the three colors. Large car Montana plate right there.
Is that
How does that plug in?
Chester?
Chester, the hatch is wide open on your car.
Oh, it's in my pocket. Yeah, all the windows are down too.
I'll close it for you.
And there's raccoons crawling around in there.
He's got an app for that.
He probably.
Thank you, Richard. Well, and on that note, we can get started. Welcome to our second to last computer club for this season. I'm Scott Stimson, and you guys are the San Carlos Computer Club. So, I bet everybody's excited. They've all got their topics for this week. I've already been unsuccessful helping answer questions. We were answering Linda's question about tap adapters with no answer because we don't know what we're talking about. But we did find a tap adapter you could download from SourceForge. So if it came down to needing one, I would trust that first because SourceForge.net tends to be a well-vetted place to download software. If not, slightly more cumbersome because it's typically open source software. And the people that write it typically write it for people that know how to write software. So it's not necessarily the most user-friendly software. But it's typically royalty-free, open source, and vetted against malware and viruses. And so that's I don't know how to help Linda with her problem, but if what she needs is a tap adapter software, I found one on SourceForge, and that's where I would get it from. I brought a couple of topics, but I'd be interested in hearing what you folks have.
I have a question for you.
Yes, Maggie, what have you got?
Over the weekend, some of these programs that have been Vader, for example, Kodi, etc. When you sign up for them, you submit your email address or your PayPal account or whatever you're currently paying. But somehow those are being tracked. Quiet little lawsuits are going on around this world. Anybody ever get through this? And part of the settlement of the lawsuit is a gag order. So if you get sued by using Vader, for example, you can't tell your friends, don't use it, or you could end up in jail. I don't know.
It does sound phony to me too. There has been a crackdown on developers, which I believe is true. I was doing some research this last week, and Kodi is a little stalled right now because they've sent out cease and desist letters to developers of Vader, developers of these plugins. I don't know, discussion groups maybe? But so I was reading articles about developers that were becoming very shy about putting their stuff out there because of these letters.
Well, they allegedly are getting into the developers' accounts, if that's the right word, and they're finding, oh, look, here's Maggie Jones, and here's her email address, and here's she's proof that she paid with PayPal. She's next. I don't
know. You know, the copyright thing has gone on forever. And there were a couple of very famous cases where they were pursued to the end, and the person was somebody that was held liable for tens of thousands of dollars. I want to say millions, but I'm not sure if I remember that right or not. But the industry went after them to make an example, and they made so many enemies making them the example that they won the appeal case. And they've never gone after anyone else since. And so I have a lot of trouble believing that they're going to go after Maggie.
Exactly, because there are millions of us.
Yeah. Right. I mean, with the exception of them at some point deciding they have to make an example. But I think even being made the example, the odds of it being you are really slim.
It's probably like what happened with DirecTV. They started monitoring Viva San Carlos and picked up picked up all the people that were doing it to make money.
I think, and they didn't bring charges against those people. They just shut them down. And I think that's what's more likely the threat that you're facing is just not being able to use it.
I also heard that Roku was partnering with Mexico and they were going to start selling them down here again.
Woo!
But
That's
I don't
big
know
news.
what they're doing to make sure that they're not used to pirate Mexican television.
Well, that'll be really interesting because Roku was really, I mean, it was kind of funny that Televisa would go after Roku. Roku is actually one of the easiest platforms to lock down, and they say it's being used for piracy when there's piracy everywhere in Mexico with Windows PCs and Android
That's
tablets
their
and.
middle name.
So like Roku could offer Mexico options to make it impossible, or nearly impossible, to use their platform for piracy. And I can imagine the only reason they haven't, I mean, maybe that's what they've done. I'd like to see an article on that because I haven't seen
I
anything.
was just told, I have not.
Roku
I mean,
in
I've not
Mexico.
read it.
But I would imagine the reason they've never offered that up is because that's their main business. I mean, that's who's buying Rokus. They're ones that can use it to load software to watch stuff illegally. As soon as they give up that control, as soon as they take control over that ability, then they've lost their market because that's all people were buying them for in the first place.
I tried to reach Roku with a VPN, and it says you're using a VPN.
Yeah.
It's not allowed.
So, for the most part, that ends up being the service provider you're going to, like Hulu or Netflix giving you that message. That's not necessarily a Roku thing.
No. Or maybe it was Hulu.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I got the VPN was to access that, but now I use it to access.
Well, and you know what is proven to be much more effective than the VPN is the smart DNS stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Maggie's been using it. Jim, you still use a smart DNS, and Ed, you do too, yeah? And it's just very reliable.
For the last 7 years, 6 years.
And one of the advantages of the smart DNS is that it doesn't have the overhead of a VPN. So any traffic outside of those services like Hulu or Netflix goes out to the internet the way traffic normally goes out to the internet. So it doesn't slow down everything you're doing.
Oh, okay. Smart.
Smart DNS.
How you download that and get that?
Tell us a little bit about it.
Go to Smart DNS,
Yeah,
Google it.
Google Smart DNS. Is it Smart DNS Proxy, or I think it's just Smart DNS. And they have like a 30-day free trial, and you can. The way it works is that you go to their website, and by doing so, you're identifying your endpoint on the internet.
Yeah.
Which is nothing to be alarmed by. Every time you go to any website, you're identifying your endpoint on the internet. That's the only way they can talk back to you. So there's nothing concerning about that. But then they take that endpoint address and they authorize it in their services as receiving traffic from specific online providers. So what they do is they maintain a list of service providers that they are selling you access to. And that list is Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Video and a bunch of other ones.
You have to go through a computer.
Well, you can go through a computer. You can also set up your router similar to how you had your router set up as a VPN. You can set that up as Smart DNS's DNS. So this is two different sides of things. One side of it is that you are telling your computers, whichever computers you want to have take advantage of this, or whatever devices. I should change my language to devices. Whatever devices you want to have take advantage of this, you need to change those to point to Smart DNS's DNS addresses. So that configuration has to change. Last week we talked about 1.1.1.1, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about changing this to a different DNS than what's available through your local internet provider. by default, we're almost all using the DNS that's provided by Telmex or Megacable. And so you need to have a method for changing that. Then you need a method to go to SmartDNS and tell them when your IP address has changed. Say you've rebooted your internet connection, or the power's gone out and they've come back on. What happens in our circumstances is that endpoint address changes. Your endpoint address is picked from a pool of addresses that Telmex is making available to you, or Megacable is making available to you. And so when you have to refresh your device, it pulls a new number from that pool. And that new number is now your endpoint number. And it's changed. And so you have to go to SmartDNS and you have to refresh that information with your new changed number.
Does it automatically?
There is a way to do it automatically if it's set up in your router. And it does it automatically if you go to it with a web page to go look at the status of your SmartDNS. It will automatically update that. It'll automatically refresh with your new endpoint IP address. Is everybody with me so far? Any questions so far?
Yeah, does it use as much bandwidth as Utopia?
It doesn't, but arguably it does for those specific services. In general, it doesn't. And in general, you are in Mexico. So when you go to Google, it's still in Spanish, unless you set your cookie to make it English. In general, with a VPN, you're literally moving your traffic out of this point and putting it at the other point. And so wherever that other point is where you're virtually existing. So if your other endpoint is in Texas, all your local related stuff is all geolocated for Texas. You're in the United States, you're in Texas. Give you an example on a VPN. If your VPN connected you in Texas and you did a Google search for what movies are playing, it would come back with all the movie theaters in Texas. If your VPN took you to England, it would be all the movie theaters there in England. That's what a VPN does. All your traffic's going back and forth across that endpoint. That is your endpoint. With a SmartDNS, your endpoint is here in Mexico. So you search for movies and you get Cinemax. Hopefully, if they've done their job right, you get Cinemax. At the very least, hopefully you get it in Hermosillo. However, what they're selling you is open access. Well, open's the wrong word, but reliable access to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Video, this list of very specific services that people outside the United States want access to when they're not in the United States. So that's the product they're selling you. They're selling you access to that list of services. And the way they do that is when you change your DNS address in your equipment, you're telling your devices to go look at SmartDNS to look up your names. So when you type in CNN.com, you're telling your device, go to SmartDNS and look up CNN.com. If it's not on their list of providers, they just point you to CNN as though you're in Mexico. Everybody following me so far? When it's Netflix, they go, wait, this is Netflix. They want Netflix as though we're in the United States. So we're going to route Netflix traffic through a different computer. So instead of sending back the Netflix address, they send back an address that they have control over. And that address they have control over acts as a proxy between you and Netflix. So Netflix believes you're in the United States, and then that proxy sends it to your computer. And it all happens because you look up a different address than the actual Netflix address.
Okay, but you can't put it on your TV.
I'm not sure what you mean.
You can, if your TV has a DNS setting. Some
Well-
TVs do. Smart TVs usually have a, where
You-
you change your DNS.
But I wouldn't get that deep into it. I wouldn't get too deep into
So you're
configuring
using it on your
individual
computer.
devices.
And you're plugging it into the TV so you can watch it on the TV?
Going through the
There you go.
infinitum.
See, that's the way.
It's coming up on your television?
No,
You're watching it on the laptop?
no, I'm watching it on TV, Netflix, US Netflix, I'm not sure.
Jim,
That's what
Yeah.
I was asking you.
I was gonna
That's
say
what I was
you,
asking. You put the DNS, oh, you put the DNS in that router.
Linda.
Okay.
That's what's going on. Is that and Jim turned me on to this with a smart DNS. They give you DNS addresses. You can stick them in the router, so you could stick them in your Buffalo, right?
Stick them in, you can't stick them in infinitum router.
Right, I have a Buffalo.
Yeah, you gotta have
Yeah.
you gotta have a dual router system.
You got to have a separate router for this.
And I do.
And in general, because there are some infinitum routers that you could do it with, but most of the new ones they've got control over their DNS settings. So if you want control over your DNS settings, you have to buy a new router, and you've got to use the Telmex one to connect you to the internet, and use this other router to do these configurations. If you're going,
Complicated.
it's not as complicated as changing the security certificates. It's something that you could learn how to do, Chester, because I know you have the skills from your previous experience working with the VPN. It's just different. It's not harder, though.
Simple.
I've never done it, Scott did.
I helped Maggie do it, and Maggie, I don't think I've ever been back over there, but I got all the instructions for doing it automatically. And this is the other thing, is that some routers running a specific software like DDWRT can be set up to do that refresh when you lose power, you get a new endpoint address. Can be set up to update Smart DNS automatically, so you really don't have to do anything. If I remember the way we've left Maggie's setup, if she loses power to her internet connection and gets a new endpoint IP, she has to take one of her computers on her network and go to the Smart DNS page, and that act of going to the page and signing in automatically refreshes that endpoint. So it's not a painful act, and I think that's why you've never bothered to have me come back and
It's been working great.
yeah. And so it can be slightly more convenient, but it's amazingly convenient to begin with after you get the router set up.
I
But so-
wouldn't know how to put
What do they
that
charge?
information in the router to begin with.
Not that that's important, but what do they charge?
It's
Smart
$35 a year, $35 a year.
I'm paying 17.
And you can get a discount and pay less, lifetime discount.
Yeah, and so
I'm only paying 17.
the interesting thing about the Smart DNS I see in my mind, what I see different when I compare and contrast it to VPN, is that in the VPN situation, the onus of problems are on you because you're using a VPN. I mean, and some of these VPN providers, they understand what you're trying to do, and they'll deal with you as though they're selling you access to Netflix, but they haven't built their business model around it. Their business model is secure, encrypted channels, right? Point to point. Some of them have gotten into, well, we're doing it for Netflix. And so they're helping you figure out how to do Netflix. But even the changes that they recommend are changes, the onus is on you. You have to make the changes. You have to choose a new endpoint for your VPN. You have to get in and change those things. Smart DNS is selling you a list, an access to a list of service providers, and their job is making sure those providers are always accessible. So to me, that's a big distinction, is that you've got the other end, this service that you're hiring, their job is to make sure that you always have access to Netflix, to make sure you always have access to Hulu. Otherwise, they don't have a product to sell you. And it's a distinction between Smart DNS and VPN. Jim, did you have a question?
No, it's actually to add to the Smart DNS. They do offer you VPN services also. You just have to go into your Smart DNS page and enable it, and they'll give you, actually they have tons of servers all around the world. And you just install them and you click where you want to be in Denmark. You go to the VPN and you're in Denmark.
It says it's $49.90 for 24 months.
So you get both services with it.
Smart
It's really
piano.
reasonable.
I just renewed it for $17.
For a year.
For a year,
This
what's
is
the
2
lifetime?
years for $49.90. Doesn't say lifetime.
No?
I was getting a lifetime, it's a lifetime price. And I looked up, I Googled
Oh,
it,
I got you.
and it's like $17, $8, whatever it is, it's for life. So once you first do it, it just sends you that same price
That same price each
every
time.
year.
Hey, the VPNs, is that an additional charge or it's part of the
Anybody
service?
that has a paid subscription to Smart DNS also has the VPN. As I said, you have to go to your home page there and enable it.
So that's
They're
the,
not as fast as Wytopia or whatever.
but you could still do Bank of America banking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or bring up your
cruising,
local
shopping,
newspaper
and
without
stuff
any
like
problems.
that. They're fantastic. They're not very good for streaming, but that's what you have a Smart DNS.
Now that's like the best of both worlds, because that's what you're missing out on. Is you're missing out on the ability to geolocate yourself somewhere else, and so you can check on your credit card and you can do your banking when they have cracked down and said no, you can't do that. You can check the Social Security page. I'm assuming that's one of the complaints that we've heard in here is people can't use the Social Security page without a VPN. Well, that's really cool, and at the same price.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're a paid subscriber.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it said in here, you get VPN.
Already got the smart DNS.
So, but a smart DNS,
The page, and
I'm done with
I
it.
can't remember where it is on there, but you go in there.
Yeah, I think it's your next step. And at the very least, even if you're reporting a problem to them, they're not having you do anything. You're not having to get into your router and make changes and change endpoints. That's all. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's been refreshed on your end, and they've got your endpoint ID, IP, the rest is up to them. They're the ones that are supposed to be providing it. Well, that was a great topic.
yeah.
I think I'm exhausted from it. I have no more information. Hey, but on the topic of TV and streaming, are you guys aware of YouTube TV?
Yeah.
You are? Are you using it?
No, it's too
No,
expensive.
You use it at home?
YouTube TV?
The $40 a month?
No.
Yeah, that's a lot.
No, I don't get to that.
No?
Never.
That
Huh.
would be your sole provider. No.
Yeah, they have like over 50 networks. I mean, it's all streaming. One of the things I found interesting, and this is why I want to find somebody that's using it, is they're offering an unlimited DVR function. And the very nature of what they're offering means that you could be DVRing things. I mean, this is my assumption. You could be DVRing things that are broadcasting at the same time.
Well, how could you use this, for example, travel in the States?
Well,
The YouTube system.
Well, the YouTube TV would just stream through your internet. The difference is, it's not on demand, it's live streaming. It's live streaming ABC, NBC, CBS. It's live streaming Fox. In fact, let me bring up the list real quick because it had all these major networks in it.
Well, they can record a program as it's being streamed.
Well, and that's what I found.
Later without commercials. So,
That's what these boxes are good for?
That's what I found most intriguing about what I was looking at.
Boxes are good for? In motorhomes? 'Cause they
Was
just hook
the
up to the internet? Once you're in the U.S., it just runs off of your email address. That's it.
ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, AMC, BBC America, BBC World News, Bravo, CNBC, NBC Sports, FX, FXX, Headline News, IFC, Sci-Fi. I mean, it's like a cable package. TNT, Fox News, Comet, the CW. Disney XD, Disney. There's like 3 different Disneys. In fact, they must be in bed with Disney. I see a lot of Disney properties here. But it does sound expensive. It's $40 a month. You get 6 accounts per household. So for $40 a month, you can have like each one of them could have their own account.
That's good.
Yeah, and the cloud DVD with no storage limits means to me that you could have a checklist of your favorite programs, and it's just I would bet there's no literal recording you're doing. You're just saying set this one aside, set this one aside, set this one aside, and undoubtedly you're one of tens of thousands of people that also want to see that episode.
But you're gonna get that in
Right.
Mexico?
That's why I want to find somebody using this. I want to see if it runs across the VPN or if it would work with the Smart
They have a
DNS.
30-day free trial.
They do have a 30-day free trial.
Guinea pig?
Yeah, what's going on here?
Well, I honestly, I was surprised to see so many people that were aware of it. Why are you guys so aware of this? I only recently, in the last week, I discovered this. I mean,
All we do all day
When
long.
I'm watching YouTube, it advertises
Yeah, they
it.
advertise it.
they advertise it on YouTube. I haven't seen it. But most of my activities happen located in Mexico, and maybe it's not being rolled out to Mexico yet.
We don't have enough time on it.
That's right.
The thing about all these is you have to have unlimited streaming. You can't have
Bandwidth
meter.
caps.
No, you can't, yeah,
I've
meter.
got 2 questions when we finish up there.
Yeah.
Well-
Have you seen that new doc? they got?
Before I leave this, I want to tell you the thing that I want to see is I want to see if you can DVR. I'm not so worried about the streaming being available in Mexico. I imagine it's not. In fact, there is a subnote here that says some networks not available in all areas. Right? So I can imagine that there are a number, but if they don't know the area you're in, then nothing's stopping you from putting on that list of DVR any of the content that's available, right? And so maybe the DVR is available outside of a local area, right? It would be associated with an account. The account would be wherever you happen to be. You wouldn't be streaming live. I just wonder if...
Your homework for tonight, you tell us about
Our going away present.
Yeah, I don't have enough to do I?
No.
Anyway, that was my reasoning behind wanting to find somebody that's been doing this stuff. Go ahead, Ed. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I got an email the other day, or not an email, but Facebook showed a little orange dot. They called it a Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah.
It's $95 a month. I just wondered if anybody heard anything about it.
$95 a month?
Sounds expensive.
Well, it's usually $9 a day.
I saw it $95 a month.
We had talked about something
yeah,
a
we
while
talked about
back.
that.
I forget what it was called, but it was like $9 a day
Yeah,
for unlimited downloading.
right.
And you could purchase it daily, or you could purchase it monthly, or you could purchase in a package of 6 months to a year. And every one of those made the price cheaper.
Unless they change the price.
Mine's at $95 a month. You have to buy the dot, it's $149.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that sounds
That's
like
it.
what we talked
Oh,
about.
then they got a monthly price on it.
I'm sorry, Ed, we became
$95.
experts in it for a week,
Yeah.
and then we've all forgotten it.
You say $95 for the month? Well, if you're traveling somewhere, it would be worth it.
Unlimited, wireless anywhere you're at. That sounds worth it.
That would be, yeah.
Huh. I mean, do your Netflix, do all your communications anywhere you happen to be, rural areas.
Yeah.
Next question, using your cell phone for a hotspot.
Yes.
What kind of speed do you get off a Wi-Fi network?
Well, it depends on your cell and your cell network. Right now, we're getting crazy speeds under 4G. Under LTE here in town, we can get between 50 to 100 megabits a second. And so that translates to whatever. I mean, you have to have the equipment that supports it, and you
Yeah.
have to be near a cell that supports it, and then your Wi-Fi has to support high-speed Wi-Fi, so it can't be an old Wi-Fi device.
I have a Samsung 5 and I can only get 3G.
There you go.
When
That's
I
it.
was in Tucson, I was able to get 4G, but down here, I can only get 3
I
gig.
got 4G.
Well, and it's because your phone came from like a Verizon network, didn't
No.
it? Something like that.
No, my phone came from, actually it's an Arabic. It's a dual SIM I bought on eBay,
Okay.
and it is Arabic, but,
Wait, it's a Samsung that supports dual SIM?
yeah,
Well, that's
Mine
cool.
does too.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't use it anymore.
The
I
second
don't need
SIM?
to use it anymore because they perfected this thing now, so when you go across the border, only place you can't use it is in Verizon. Like when we were up in Utah last summer, and all those areas that are Verizon, it won't work. As long as you're in AT&T or T-Mobile area. Now, it works in T-Mobile in Tucson, but when you go up to Phoenix, it switches over to
I have
AT&T.
Verizon because it works everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the Mexican, this is
I-
Mexican.
I
I-
have Verizon next.
So,
I'm very happy with my Huawei, but the government isn't.
Yeah. Well, they're changing. Trump changed.
Well, ZTE, this is what I heard just, what was it, yesterday?
yeah.
Is Trump's going to work with the
Oh.
Chinese president to try and
Yeah, 'cause
get...
he wants to build something in China.
ZTE is the biggest offender of what they're upset with.
Right.
Huawei is the one that they should be working on getting back into stores. Why would he be working with ZTE? They have blatantly... Yeah.
Because they worked with him on North Korea.
Yeah. It's nuts. I mean, like, I think it's nuts to do all that blocking in
He
the
had a
first
hand raised
place.
on the other end.
Who's raising their hand?
Oh, your YouTube, Smart DNS says it unlocks all YouTube channels.
The YouTube TV specifically?
It says YouTube channels, I was just looking through here to see if it had YouTube channels, which one, in their services, it's listed. Yeah, right up at the top, it says unlock all the YouTube.
It's interesting what Google's doing here because they've got standard YouTube, YouTube Red, and YouTube TV now.
I bet that's not YouTube TV.
Well,
I could try
one way to
it.
find out, Scott.
I need one of you retired folks to spend some time playing with this and report.
We don't-
YouTube Red is a on-demand.
Really?
YouTube brings you the best of the video channels worldwide.
So that sounds more like
Video
getting around the geolocation of their standard service, but it doesn't necessarily address the live streaming service that they've created.
I don't know, all channels.
Jim, now you have homework.
Ed likes to do that stuff.
YouTube Red is a on-demand, pay-for movie, TV show streaming service, like a Netflix or a Hulu, and it's just growing right now. And they've been creating some of their own content. So just like Amazon's doing, just like Hulu's
Amazon
doing.
disappoints me because, Amazon Prime, all these things available. Yeah, an old copy of I Love Lucy for $3
Right.
for a half hour show. I don't think so.
But you know, Amazon
Is that in what's
Prime
happening?
raised their price retroactively.
What's out there?
They raised the price last week. It's effective March 8th.
Let me see.
So they sent
Yeah.
you a back bill?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
No, it wasn't a back bill. I got it. And what it said on like May 10th, I got an email saying that they raised the price on May 1st. Right?
Well, mine said March 8th.
Mine said May 1st.
Right after the billing cycle.
My billing cycle is in October, and so what they were doing was telling me when it comes around in October, you're going to pay this new price.
No, mine was renewed on March 8th, so they went back to March 8th.
Reread that. You might be getting the next year for the same
I went
price.
back and checked the number, and it was higher.
Can they do that?
They did it.
But is that legal?
Messenger.
Wow, if that's legal, then we got to start paying more attention to our terms of service that we agree to, because
Who reads that?
It's on
Right.
Page 87.
right, yeah, page 87. Right under that part about loaning your password to your family.
It's under the heading fine print.
That is really interesting. Because I read mine, and it's like, wait, you can't do that. It's May 10th. You can't just send me something saying you've changed the price on the 1st. And then I read it farther down, and it says, so when you are billed in October, you will be billed at this new rate. And I'm like, well, I guess you can do that. Or I could cancel. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. The prime aspect is I think it's a good one. I mean, the idea of free shipping, and then they start throwing music and they start throwing videos on top. Like, it doesn't have to be great videos as long as it's still free shipping. It doesn't have to be free shipping, but it always has to be free. So, like, we've got an Amazon Echo, and we listen to music through it all the time.
Yeah, but to download a piece of music, I'm winding up paying 99 cents.
Well, if you purchase it.
So I purchased it so I can put it into a DVD.
Yeah. And so they've got a service on Amazon that is unlimited music. That is,
You have to listen.
well, that unlimited music allows you to download it. But you have to, well, the Prime account allows you to do it as well. They have an Amazon app for music. And you can download and carry your music offline on your device. But I think the unlimited music account, I believe you can move that to devices. I know your purchases that you're doing, definitely you can move them to other devices. Maybe the unlimited you can't. I don't know, now that I think about it, maybe you can. But you know, the Apple Music, if you get into Apple, they let you do all that stuff. You're able to move it across devices, and I've often wondered what happens when you cancel from that. Why can't you just subscribe to Apple and download all the music and then cancel your subscription? See, Amazon's addressed that issue with Prime by just saying, oh yeah, you can download it, but you have to use our app, and their app authorizes all that music. If you're not using their app, then you can't listen to the music. Apple can't do that because they don't have an app in everything. Well, I guess they do now, don't they? They have an iTunes app in Amazon, or in Android. So I guess they could do the same thing. Whole bunch of speculation on stuff I don't know.
I took an old cell phone, and there's a website called Django.com.
Okay.
And I took the old cell phone, I turned all the stuff off.
Right.
And I hooked it up to a little speaker, and then you can pick all the music you want, the kinds of music you want. I just play it all day long in the house. And it's free.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Django.com.
Django.com.
Laptop.
Say that again?
I have XM for
Oh, XM, you've downloaded that?
the app for my phone and my laptop. I pay an extra $5 a month.
To be able to access it through streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all the channels.
Hey, I brought a couple of topics. I got one that took me by surprise. I didn't realize you could do this stuff with Google Docs. And maybe you guys are interested in this, but Google Docs has a built-in OCR function, optical character recognition.
Which one's that?
Google Docs. Your Google account, your Google account allows you access to a Google service called Drive.
Yeah.
And you can upload PDFs and images to your Google Drive. Then you can open those using Google Docs. And Google Docs does an OCR translation on them. Which one?
Docs.
DOCS, Docs. Yeah.
Documents.
So Google Drive is a cloud storage service that is combined with their Office suite. So you have a spreadsheet program called Google Sheets. You have a word processing program called Google Docs. They've made a large subset of it, a very functional subset of this available to you for free for using Google, having a Google account. And one of the, I've had people in this group and customers ask me about optical character recognition. This is like you have a printed piece of paper and you need to digitalize it. Well, with Google Docs, what you could do is you could start out by scanning that using your equipment, and you end up with a photo or a PDF. And then you can dump that in your Google Drive and choose to open it with Google Docs from that same drive. And when it opens up, it will translate that image into a word processing document that you could edit.
You need to proof it.
Right. You would need to proof it, but it's insane how accurate this stuff
Yeah,
is
really.
becoming, yeah.
Because I recently purchased an OCR program to handle
that.
Mexican documents.
Yeah.
But if this was free, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, I would definitely give this a shot. I had no idea this was a capability until recently. Apparently it's been in there for a while, but nobody's paid any attention to it. So when you get the picture or the PDF document in Docs, the action you do when you're looking at it there in your drive, in your Google Drive. I'm sorry, they used to call everything Google Docs, and then they changed the name to Google Drive. And I've been doing this stuff for so long, I get the two of them mixed up all the time.
Which one is it?
So Google Drive is the cloud storage space, and it works in conjunction with Docs, Google Docs, Google Sheet. They've got a PowerPoint. I can't remember the name of it. I should just bring it up. I've got a Google thing here.
Google Docs open Microsoft Word documents.
Yes. Yeah, and they're highly compatible with
Well, that'd be good.
Well, what
People
I've
send
been
me
doing with my
DO
purchase
DOCX things.
is I would take a Mexican document, a page of it, and I would copy it, I would scan it, get it into a Word file, and then I could put it into Google Translate the whole page
Okay.
without having to type it.
Right.
I got a free one of those the other day. I was trying to remember the name, but I can't. My wife is doing a bunch of translations for a Spanish deal. She had a whole book full of pages. We ran the pages through, pushed the button, and it turned out in English. And she read it. It's fairly accurate.
Turns it into funny English.
Were you using Google Translate?
No, I think it's all in one. I'll bring the name next week.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
Pretty good deal. It's an online service for free.
Well, Google Drive, which is the all-encompassing cloud storage, it works in conjunction with Google Docs for word processing, Google Sheets for spreadsheet, Google Slides, which is like a PowerPoint, Google Forms, which is it's basically for database stuff. Google Drawings for graphics, so you have a draw program. Google My Maps, so you can build your own maps using the Google Maps system. Google Sites I know nothing about, but all of that is encompassed in Drive. So you update or you upload a image to Google Drive, and then with the right mouse button you click on that image, and it has an option that says Open with Docs. And when you choose Open with Docs, it does optical character recognition on that image and puts it in as a document to be edited. I just thought it was cool. I thought I'd let you guys know about it.
On OpenOffice, you can use PDFs too. I use OpenOffice, you use the other one.
I use LibreOffice,
Yeah.
but what you're saying is if you open a PDF in there, it becomes
You can make a PDF and everything in there.
Wait, can you bring a PDF in as an editable word processing document?
That I don't know.
Because that's what this is talking about. This is about taking the
editable.
contents of a PDF document
Okay.
and turning it into an editable. I mean, occasionally people have needs for this kind of stuff. And the fact that Google's got it there for free makes it really
I thought
convenient.
the point of the PDF was so people couldn't change it.
Yeah, until Google Docs. Well, the real point of the PDF was to provide a digital document that was formatted in a print fashion so that it would appear on any device in the form that it was intended to appear.
And you could take it to a printer, and they would print it, and it would look
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
all
the idea.
characters would be the same.
A PDF is actually a scripting language that makes everything look the way it's supposed to appear. And it doesn't matter what device it's on, doesn't matter what printer it's on. That's the way it's intended to look.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Some of the PDFs, I try to keep in my computer manuals on different things that I have, including programs, and sometimes they go sideways. And so you're trying to find page 165, you've got to move them a page at a time. Where those that go up and down, you can scroll up and down.
Can't you change them back over to
Well, I don't
portrait?
know how. That's why I'm asking.
Well, and mostly you can't. I mean, because of the nature of PDF, you can envision a manual for something, and in the physical version of it might be this large flip book,
Yeah.
right? And you can, in the PDF, you can set it to be landscape. You can say that you want the scrolling to go, and unless you have control over that PDF, then you're stuck working in that format. That's because that's the way they intended it to be. You might try, and I'm not saying that this is the solution, but you might try alternate PDF readers, because you'd be looking for features that allowed you to make changes to that kind of stuff. And off the top of my head, I can think of only one alternate PDF reader, which is Foxit. Foxit is a PDF reader. I used to use it all the time.
What's it called?
Foxit, like the animal fox, and then the word it after it, IT. But you could also try opening any of these PDFs in any of the browsers, because I think they all support PDFs now. Opera, Firefox, Chrome, they all read PDFs, and they have their own feature set for reading PDFs. So you might find a solution in there. Google Drive has a PDF reader in it too. And so you might see what kind of options you get with like what we were just discussing. You could put it in Google Drive and do the optical character recognition on it and see what pops up in Docs, and maybe that's easier for you to work with than the original PDF. So there's that.
That's a new subject.
Okay,
Has
I've
it-
also got one more new subject, but
Okay.
go ahead.
This is on a Mexican car.
Okay.
Okay, we have our new car. It has, you can put the DVDs in, has the screen. Okay, so we went to test it yesterday, and it has a region in it.
It's region coded.
And now we tried to play our CD, so when we go on a trip.
Wait,
but
your
it's
music?
region coded,
Your music is region coded.
and so is the DVD. It says,
I've never heard of CDs being region
So it
coded.
has to be in Spanish?
no,
No.
Made in-
US is region
It
1.
must have mariachi music, or it will not play.
US is region
You have to
1,
put a sombrero on when you
Yeah.
stick the disc in.
but Mexico is region 4.
So it has to
Right.
have been purchased in Mexico.
So, well, we're
It's-
trying.
it's a
we
Mexican
went
car.
online trying to figure out, you can change it to region 0,
Right?
which no matter where you go, it'll play.
It should work, yeah.
But we don't know how to change it. So I called GM yesterday.
They probably won't
Mexico,
change
and I
it.
spoke it to English, and she said I needed to call in the U.S. So I called the GM dealer in Tucson that I've been to before, and they're not sure about it. So we're going to take the car up next week. And he said if you had to have it changed, it would be like $500. I said, well, it wouldn't be worth it. I said, are you sure there isn't some way to change the region in the BIOS, which I don't know how to get to on.
I think you're doing it wrong. I think you should take your car into Guaymas to that audio stereo shop.
The
And-
place in Guaymas Norte,
There's one in Guaymas Norte. I was thinking about one on the main strip.
the Pro.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've been there before. Yeah.
Okay, I would take it to them because they're going to know exactly what your problem
No.
is.
Which one are we talking about? Which store?
I was thinking of one that's on the main road, but the fact that you said
You mean
Pro,
by the coffee place?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was thinking of.
Pro, isn't it? Or maybe they changed their name now. It used to be called Pro something.
I was thinking it was like Pro Audio or
Yeah.
something. It's pretty obviously right there, though. I would find somebody that's made their profession with car stereos here in Guaymas,
Okay,
and tell them your dilemma, because undoubtedly they've dealt with it before. Because the region coding thing is a problem for Mexicans. It's something we don't deal with it so much when we live in a bubble of America with American DVDs, but undoubtedly they've got American DVDs they're trying to play in their devices.
yeah.
And so if they don't know how to fix it, they'll know the right steps to go about finding the fix for it.
Buy 'em all at
But when you go to the border,
Yeah.
there's these guys with 500 CDs for sale while you're waiting in line.
Yeah.
Well, that guy might not be able to help you, but the guy that gave him all those CDs to sell probably could help you.
Okay,
But yeah, I think you're going to have a
Maybe
lot
we
more
should go
luck.
there.
Yeah. You want to go into the bowels of Guaymas and find somebody
Find
that
the right
works.
state tree.
That's
yeah.
right. Somebody using some fake name like Paco.
Which coffee shop?
You could try a
Cafe, you know?
cloner yourself,
It's on the
And
left
keep
as
off
you're
the
going in
region.
town.
if you wanted to copy your,
It's kind of
And then it's on the left.
Linda, you're aware of that, right?
you can use a cloner like Slyfox or whatever to, now they call it Red Fox, they changed the name, to re-record it and take off the encryption. So you just have to make new CDs. Would be,
And
Had
DVDs?
and DVDs.
Hey, does it have a
Sly
US?
Fox?
I think it's Red Fox.
Oh.
Now, it used to be Slyfox. It's,
Does it have a USB drive? Your stereo. Does it have a USB input?
drive.
Thumb drive.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So have you tried watching a video off the thumb drive?
No,
Because that's, I mean, honestly, we live in a world now where it's easier to download it and put it on a thumb drive than it is to.
I tried to download this particular thing and it won't let you. Because we tried to make copies of it and
Copyright.
it's copyrighted.
Handbrake. You could
Red
try
Fox.
Handbrake.
Handbrake?
Yeah, Handbrake's got a good rep for ripping discs.
There's the
We can do
address.
this without losing it.
Oh, I lost it.
I
Here,
will.
hold on.
Just
Oh, there it is.
tap the little button on the side.
It's been a while since we've talked about DVDs.
Do the back arrow. Okay.
But I agree with your sentiments, Linda. I think the real fix
Red
is to
alert?
get that region code out of there.
Cody Red Alert? No, that's not it. Oh, here's Sly Fox.
It used to be Slyfox. Now they changed it to Red Fox.
Okay, redfox.biz.
I don't know if you guys
Okay.
remember, but with Windows XP, Windows Vista, and Windows 7, if you were to, I said 7, I'm not sure if that was true in 7, but it was definitely Vista and XP. If you were to take a DVD, like you rented one from Blockbuster here in Guaymas and stick it in your computer would recognize the region code and say, we need to swap over to region 4. You're only allowed to swap your region 3 or 4 times. I can't remember the exact number. And it would do a countdown on your region swap. So, and this was something that they did with Windows PCs. So if you stuck in that Mexican disk, you were at region 4 until you put in an American disk. And then you put in an American disk and you get the warning saying, for you to play this, you need to swap your region over to region 1 so that you can watch this disc. You only have 2 more swaps before it'll be set in stone. And so on your last swap, it would burn the PROM and say, this is now that region. It is now a region 1. There is no swapping. And it happened in the hardware as well as the software. So you could reload your Windows. Your DVD was still stuck at that last region. And very few of the DVD players that were manufactured like that could you go in and flash them and make them go back to a region code. And so we used to use software that would intercept the region and spit to the device the region code it was expecting. So that whole swapping process would never happen. But you'd have to run this little piece of software down in your taskbar, and it would grab that from when you'd stick a DVD in, it would go, oh, this is region 4, but this player likes region 1, and it would send region 1 to the player.
Do you think that a Mexican's CD, DVD burner would be region sensitive?
If you're burning it yourself, you're picking the region whether you know it or not. And most of your own personal burning, the default would be 0 region. Yeah.
Playback.
So with a 0 region, all DVDs are supposed to play it. However, in the United States, for a while there, we sold DVD players that would not recognize 0 region. It was considered a pirating tool, and so you couldn't get a player that would play a zero region DVD. I don't know if any of that's true anymore, but back in the day, it was the biggest frustration.
All right,
I don't know if anybody has
I'll go
any information
downtown
on
then.
that.
First, before I go to.
And you had one more item.
I did have one more item I thought you guys might find interesting. It was about USB-C. So I know we're going to have one more meeting, and then we're taking off for the summer. And you guys are going to be tempted by electronic devices that are new and shiny and have new capacities. One of the new capacities that a lot of these devices are going to start sporting is the USB-C port. They're all over the new Macintoshes, but they're also going to be out on the new cell phones too. And if you're not familiar with what USB-C is, this is a USB port that is bidirectional. You don't have to be concerned about which direction you plug it into your device. Okay, so you have, the iPads have a Thunderbolt port that does that, and it's a wafer that you stick in to the port. This is an orifice that you stick into a port. It's slightly different. The new Macintosh, MacBook laptops, MacBook Pro laptops are sporting this port. Novio. Yeah, right. Now you got me doing it.
It has it.
Lenovo. I had to spell it in my head to say it right. Yeah, it has a USB-C port. And I was telling you guys about this great deal I got on a pretty laptop for my wife this last time I was in the States. Paid something like $240 for it, and it had a detachable tablet screen. You guys remember this? And it came with a USB-C port, and I was really impressed that I could get into a USB-C port at such a cheap price. So what I've discovered recently, not with that device, I still need to go look at it, is that USB-C is a fairly arbitrary distinction. In fact, it doesn't have anything to do with speed. Speed is a completely separate issue. And it has very little to do with compatibility outside of USB, because that's a separate issue. The USB-C designation is more a physical designation. What USB-C is telling you is that you can physically flip the port on it. You can plug it in this way, or you can flip it over and plug it in that way. And it's also telling you that you can run power across it. And it's also telling you that you can run power across it both directions. And it's bidirectional both directions. You can run power and data both directions across this cable. But then after that, you got to be careful with this USB-C, because the cables matter and the devices matter. And if you're using it to charge devices, the charger matters. And they're not necessarily compatible with what you're trying to use it for. So these are things that we're going to have to start paying attention to as these devices come out with USB-C ports. I use the example again of my wife's new laptop, which converts into a tablet. I'm imagining I can't use the USB-C port for powering it or for charging the battery. And I make that assumption because it comes with a separate power adapter for the device. Chester, I think your laptop comes with a separate power adapter for your new laptop, even though it has a USB-C port on it. Even though the USB-C standard makes allowances for being the battery charger, in those devices, it hasn't been used that way. So you might, and I don't know if this is true, but you might even actually end up damaging the device if you had a USB-C charger and you plugged it into that port. You might damage the device because it's not intended to be charged that way. What else is interesting is that we've got these different standards: USB 2, USB 3, USB 3.1. I guess I wasn't paying attention, but there's a generation 1 of USB 3.1 and a generation 2 of USB 3.1. So there's 2 different standards of USB 3.1. Your device using USB-C could be any of those standards.
Are those based on speed?
Well, they affect speed. Yeah. So like USB 2 is 480 megabits per second, whereas USB 3.1 generation 2 is up to 10 gigabits a second. Right? So easily 20 times faster than USB 2. This is important because as you get into USB-C devices, inevitably you're getting into USB-C chargers and cables as well. And the cables have to be rated for your activity. So you got a new cell phone, you take out some random USB-C cable, you plug that in, or you plug it into a charger. Your new phone's supposed to be able to charge in 30 minutes, and it's not working. It could be the charger, the phone, or the cable between the two is not meeting the standard for the fast charging. If you're in the Mac world, you end up working with Thunderbolt. That's their high-speed connector. USB-C on a Macintosh supports Thunderbolt connections. The PCs could support Thunderbolt as well. They just haven't so far. In a Mac world, the USB-C cable has to be a Thunderbolt compatible cable, a Thunderbolt 3 compatible cable. There's 2 different types of cables. They look exactly the same. One is called active. Thunderbolt with an active cable can give you up to 40 gigabits a second, which is 4 times higher than the highest number we just said. Right? I mean, this is amazingly fast data transfers, 4K video, fast, complete backups. I mean, what this opens to our world is amazing, but this cable standard is going to be what's confusing people. So you could have a Thunderbolt hard drive, you could have your Macintosh, and you could have a USB-C cable between them, and you could drop from 40 gigabits a second down to 480 megabits a second. I mean, can I do the math on that in my head real quick? That's 80 times slower, simply because you have the wrong cable, even though it fits everything and looks like the right standard. So if you find yourself buying a device this summer, and it may be sporting USB-C, you may want to pay attention to what activities you plan on doing with it. And a good example to me would be you buy a new cell phone and you buy a new laptop, and your new cell phone does things like 4K video, and you want to get that over to your laptop as quickly as possible. Then it would be very important the USB-C cable that you buy. Now, in the standards, are you guys still interested in this? Because I got more information. In the standards, There is the full functional cable. The fully functional cable. It's written in the standard. It's what handles the power. It handles the data rate transmission. You can look for that as a marketing term because it's a standard term as well. And if you're concerned about getting the overall can do everything cable for USB-C, you can look for the fully functional USB-C cable. Undoubtedly, there's going to be a distinction in prices, and it will be along these standards. So you can buy a $5 cable or a $20 cable, and you're looking at them going, what's the difference? You're looking for the words fully functional on the $20 cable. The cable has to support power delivery. A standard cable that doesn't support power delivery will charge something like a phone or an iPod, but it will only do it at the USB power rates of 3 amps, 3 amps, 60 watts at most. You might have a brand new cell phone with a USB-C and marketing telling you that you can charge the battery in 30 minutes. But if you don't have the cable with power delivery, PD, then it's only going to charge it at that lower rate, that lower speed. It has to have the power, the USB-C power delivery option. And that will allow the cable, and that's the cable, that's not the charger, it's not the device, that's the cable needs to support that. Yes, the charger has to comply, the device has to comply, and the cable has to comply for you to take advantage of that. So I found all this very interesting stuff because it looked like this standard to take over everything. It's the ultimate standard, but there's a lot of stuff convoluted in this standard. I wouldn't be surprised if my wife's new computer's USB, because of the price I paid for it, it may have a USB-C port on it, but they could have wired it right to USB 3, not even 3.1. They could have just wired it to USB 3 because all this stuff is backwards and forwards compatible. So I would see slower data rates and I would see slower charging off of that port, even though it looks like it should be able to transfer. And it wouldn't matter the standard cable I used. It wouldn't matter the device I was plugging it into because the port was originally, it's a physical standard. I don't know. I found all that very interesting. USB-C also supports DisplayPort. And in the Mac world, it's being used to plug in monitors. And what this also means is that we will see monitors in the future that you could plug a USB-C into to power them and to present the video. But it's not inconceivable to have more USB-C ports coming out of that monitor to power other devices.
So daisy chain.
Yeah, similar to that. Yeah. So it can power, but it could also provide power. The new Macs have really taken advantage of this. Their MacBook Pro, you can have a setup with 2 Thunderbolt displays, like 5K displays, plugged into a hub that plugs right into your MacBook Pro. There's one cable that goes to your MacBook Pro. That one cable recharges the battery and it allows you to feed 3 monitors, well, 2 monitors plus the laptop off of that one cable. So they've really done a nice way of tying that together with their technology, and the PCs are trying to catch up with that kind of thinking. But I would bet if you're looking at a price on a device that has USB-C ports on it at a unreasonably low price, they've cut corners on that standard to provide you with what looks like, I mean, they're using it like a marketing device. They're like, oh, it's got the latest cables. It's got the latest ports on it. But you'd have to dig deeper into the description of the device to see what it actually supports. It's conceivable that you couldn't run a video through that port because of the way the standard's been written. That port could be hooked to a USB 3, like I was describing with my wife's computer, which would give it no capacity to send video through it to a monitor that supports USB-C. Or just by buying the wrong cable, you could lose that ability, because the cable has to support video going through it as well. Anyway, I got all this information from a very insightful YouTube video. and I'm going to put the link on our website on scclub.org. So if you guys find yourself looking at new devices and want to have like a primer on how this stuff works, you can take a look at this video. He does a really good job going through everything that it's capable of and all that and I'd give him a little plug here, but I can't remember his name. I think it's like T.O. Joe, something like it, Tion Joe. But I'll put the link on scclub.org, so if you guys are interested in this stuff, you can follow that link and see the video. Hey, and we're 10 minutes over,
All right.
and everybody is still here, which makes me feel like I've been talking about interesting stuff.
We have good meetings.
Still awake, too.
Still awake. Yeah.
A lot of notes.
We got one more meeting next week, and then we're done for what I call our season until the first Tuesday in October. Thanks for showing up.
First Tuesday in
Is-
October.
Is there anything that we didn't get to cover? Anybody come here with a question they didn't get answered? Bitcoin. Time to go. See you guys.
First Tuesday in October is the
You know,
second.
Costco's selling.
Wow, I think that should work.
That should work,
Yeah.
Tuesday the second.
Tuesday the 2nd. Okay.
It's okay. Did you say first Tuesday in October?
Yes. First Tuesday in
And
October.
where?
We'll send out an announcement if for some reason that doesn't work. But I'll plan on it.
That's what we've been trying to
Is it a
do.
Bose or whatever?
I have not. Let me sign off real quick. This has been the San Carlos Computer Club. I am Scott Stimson with International Computer Solutions. If you have computer needs anywhere on the internet, I'd appreciate you getting a hold of us at internationalcs.net. If you've enjoyed this, I'd encourage you to check out more of them. I make recordings of each one of our meetings. I make access from our website at scclub.org. You can see our videos. You can listen to previous meetings. You can subscribe to us as a podcast. Go wherever you get your podcasts and search for the San Carlos Computer Club. Until next Tuesday, this is Scott Stimson saying tech on, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.